with ill will and fury and livid faces, for this is what is meant by the breath of their faces like the east wind, and they gathered captives like sand. They scoff at kings. See, this document really is upset about the Romans. I think it's right in the middle of the war against Rome. They scoff at kings, they ridicule leaders. Its interpretation is they jeer at the mighty and sneer at honorable men. They deride kings and ministers. They make light of large armies. They laugh at fortified cities. They batter down earthworks and capture them. Its interpretation concerns the leaders of the Kittim who despise the fortresses of the peoples. I will explain that to you when we get to it at the end of this course. But the peoples to me is an allusion to the Herodians, and I'll explain why it's an allusion to the Herodians when we get to it. The Herodians had these fortresses like Masada, like Machaerus, where John the Baptist was executed, like another place called Hyrcania. These were originally Maccabean fortresses, and they later became peoples is a name for people that the writers of this didn't consider to be really Jewish. And we're going to call them in another document the kings of the peoples. Laughing at them contemptuously with a mighty host, they encircle and capture them. This is not the Seleucids. And through terror and fear they surrender into their hands, and they destroy them, and here it is, because of the sins of their inhabitants. Anyway, I don't want to read any more of that particular section, but let me go on to further along. Column 6. And you deal with men like the fish of the sea, like creeping things, you rule over him. This is 5 at the end. All of them he takes up with a fish hook. This is from the original Habakkuk. Collecting them in a dragnet. That's why he sacrificed to his net. This is why he rejoices and celebrates and burns incense to his dragnet, since by then his portion is fat and his eating is plenteous. Its interpretation concerns the evil ones of the rulers of the Kittim, who collect their riches with all their booty. They come and take riches. That's what they're interested in. Plunder. Well, that we know that's what they were interested in. Like the fish of the sea. I think all those images in the Gospels relate to this fishing nets, pulling in the nets full of fish, going to the Sea of Galilee, dropping a hook into the Sea of Galilee, pulling out a fish with a Roman coin in its mouth, and therefore Jesus says, whose coin is in its mouth? It's Caesar's. Therefore render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and God what is God. So you're supposed to pay the taxes according to that particular parable or example or simile. But I think it's all based on these similes here, but we'll get to that. That's why I think the scrolls are so important. I'm getting way ahead of myself, but I want to show you why the Kittim is important, why internal evidence is important. And as for what was said about sacrificing to his net and burning incense to his dragnet, its interpretation is that they sacrifice to their standards and worship their weapons of war. Bang. Bingo. That should be clear to anyone who knows military history and the characteristics of different armies. And it's in Josephus too, at the time of the final uprising, that after they took the temple, they stopped and did a sacrifice on the Temple Mount and adored their standards. Its interpretation that they sacrifice their standards and worship their weapons of war, since because of them his portion is fat, his eating is plenteous. Its interpretation is they parcel out their yoke and their taxes. Paul says pay them. The Roman authorities were put there by the decision of God. And you're not to quarrel with the decision of God. So you pay the taxes. But these people in Palestine said, no, we won't, and they paid the price. Paul's probably right in that basis. And so the rabbis agree with Paul. Rabbi Yochanan shot an arrow into the Roman camp according to Talmudic materials, as I told you last time, and said Rabbi Yochanan is a friend of the emperor. And for that he was ushered into the emperor's camp and supposedly applied the messianic prophecy to Vespasian and said that was the world ruler prophecy. It's from Numbers, I think, 24, as I recall, 24:17. Star will rise from Jacob, a scepter to rule the world. And so this is the world ruler that would come out of Palestine to rule the world, is what Rabbi Yochanan was trying to say according to the Talmudic materials about either Vespasian or his son Titus. The problem is that Josephus in the Jewish War presents himself doing the very same thing. When he's taken prisoner in Galilee, he then, after he betrays his comrades, They're all in the cave. It's an incredible episode. They're all in the cave. Josephus is supposed to be one of the commanders of the Galilean contingents to resist the Romans. They're all in a cave, and the point is that they all commit suicide rather than surrender. That was the Zealot way. So Josephus says, we drew straws, and Josephus and a companion drew the short straws. Therefore, we killed all the others. Then he and I went out and surrendered to the Romans.
They're supposed to kill themselves too.
Of course. So he's proud of this behavior, but he's very frank and honest, you see, in the sense that he tells you what a sleazebag he is. You know, but this is how he survived. Yeah.
We don't know the name of his companion.
No. Anyway, you'll find it in the Jewish War. So I have you read these documents. I think it's also in the Vita. What?
Doesn't his own mother disown him?
No, nothing like that. There's nothing about his mother. But let me go back to the point about Josephus. He then goes before Vespasian. I think it's Vespasian, and he says, "You are the world ruler who will come out of Palestine to rule the world." Therefore, he portrays himself as a Jewish prophet who is foretelling the future emperorship of Vespasian, which comes true. And so that's why he's promoted in the Flavian family to be one of their sidekicks, and gets the name Flavius Josephus and writes the Jewish war to praise himself and their actions in Palestine. Whereas Julius Caesar wrote his own Gallic wars, the Flavians can't write, they're too stupid. They need someone like Josephus to write their Jewish war for them and so on. Anyway, so again, what I'm trying to say is that it's not just Christianity as we know it that felt you had to get along with Rome, even though Christian history says the Romans persecuted us. Maybe later on, that's something in the 2nd, 3rd century, you'd have to look into that. But Judaism of the surviving kind says you have to get along with Rome. This is the third way. These people did not survive, but they left their manuscripts in the caves that did survive. So we know what they were thinking and how they were thinking. So they shouldn't have survived, they're nuts. Well, they may be nuts, but they're noble, they're very noble, and they're beautiful losers, if you want to call them that. So, you know, you can be a sleazy winner like Josephus or a beautiful loser. And sometimes you have to make a decision like that. So there's been a lot of stuff that's been in the papers recently about Holocaust documents that have been revealed and so on, and I just saw something